Are we finally starting to see some signs of life from Jasmy? I mean, maybe that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, because we've actually seen some pretty important like trends broken and some reversals maybe potentially starting to happen. So again, we've got to wait probably about a day or two to really know for sure. But we're starting to see some trends and some maybe initial signs of that happening. So I want to talk a little bit about that today. Obviously, there has not been too much going on with Jasmy recently. Even today, not a whole lot of news coming from the Jasmy team or the Jasmy ecosystem. I think we're just starting to see a little bit of like some price and some sentiment turnaround within the crypto market. And so we're starting to see some better movements coming out of altcoins specifically, but kind of everything all around. I mean, even Bitcoin and Solana and Ethereum, some of these bigger ones are doing particularly well also. So let's go on ahead. We'll dive right in. We're going to first off take a look at the crypto bubbles. We can see crypto bubbles very, very green overall. Only a couple, looks like about 4 or 5 here with very, very small red bubbles. Everything else looking pretty green. You can see Jasmy up almost 16% today. What is that? The 4th highest, right behind XCN, Bonk, and Fartcoin. We do have Jasmy. And then past that, we have Curve, Hype, Hyperliquid, Render, XTC, Caspa, some of these others here. Tau and Ondo, also other good ones as well. We can also see, we talk about ICP a lot on the channel, up about 5% on the day. Not particularly great compared to some of what we've seen here in the market, but obviously Jasmy outperforming the majority of the market on a day like today, which is really good to see. So we are seeing a little bit of some green this week. Jasmy up about 25%. Again, this run continuing a little bit longer, which is great. Obviously still a ton of red here. A lot of what we're seeing on the movements this week is largely due to Fartcoin, XCN, and then as well as Jasmy and Hyperliquid. That's the majority of kind of what's been causing the green here. So we'll go ahead, we'll continue along. We can see, before we get into the Jasmy chart, I want to take a little bit, just a super quick look at Bitcoin, because there's a couple things that are very important that are happening that I think is why we're actually starting to see a run up from Jasmy. So the first thing we can see here, a months long kind of descending trend line that we have not been able to break through. We've come in contact with it multiple different times. In this case here, we came into contact and got rejected about 5 days consecutively, which is pretty crazy. Then obviously it looked like we might have had a chance to break through here. Then of course that was quickly rejected. And then we've just kind of continued on down this descending trend line. However, if you can see here, we are actually breaking above it right now. Now, again, we can, of course, be rejected like we have been so many times in the past. But as you can see, not only has there been a lot of volatility, but we did kind of bounce off of this bottom point, which I think for a lot of people felt a little bit like a bottom. Now, again, since it felt like a bottom, maybe that means it's exactly not a bottom. But what we're seeing here, I think is, potentially a little bit of a sign of some reversal coming along here. Breaking this months-long trend line would be very, very positive for Bitcoin and then obviously crypto more generally. And this, I think, is why we're starting to see a little bit of some optimism coming into some of the altcoins, is because it does look like there might be signs of life coming from Bitcoin. And of course, as much as we may or may not like it, Bitcoin does drive the crypto market. And so we do really need to pay close attention to what Bitcoin is doing. So again, otherwise, about sitting neutral on the Bollinger Bands, as we said, kind of just barely breaking above this. We can always wick back down, so that is a possibility. And you can see here on the RSI, sitting at about neutral. So kind of just a very overall neutral position for Bitcoin generally. So we'll have to kind of see how that develops and how that's going. But if we do look at Jasmy, we can see several things here. I've got a lot of things drawn on. Let's go zoom in here first, and we're going to talk about some of the more recent moves that we have seen. So if you can see here, we've actually been following kind of this like fairly tight trend line to the downside. Again, very, very similar to what we've seen out of Bitcoin. This has only been for about the past 2 months though. So you see all of February and all of March, we were kind of drawing down here. And then of course we have broken and cleared above this trend line. And actually we've gone and broken back above this trend line here at about the 1.2 cent, or not the trend line, excuse me, the resistance, which is about at the 1.2 cent range. So again, we could always get rejected and wick right back down, but at least so far it's looking like we've broken above this fairly clearly, which does mean we might be able to reestablish some support at this level, which would be very, very good news. Now, of course, we do have this next support level at this about 1.6 cent range. We've talked about this several different times in the past just because it had been previously a very, very strong point of support where we'd seen many swing lows come back down to this point and then bounce right back off. Obviously, we did break through it, so we would probably need to come back up. I am imagining this will be a fairly strong point of resistance, but if we do flip it and turn it into a support, then it will become a pretty strong level of support. Now, if we zoom out a little bit and kind of look at a little bit of the bigger picture, we can see a couple of different things. First off, the downtrend is still very much intact. If we were to essentially use some of these larger peaks, let's go and do that real quick. Probably not this one, but we're going to be using this. We can see, this is kind of maybe a little bit of a larger macro downtrend. We have not actually broken above this level of a trend line here, which does kind of lead to a little bit of concern for a couple of different reasons, because we're running into this possible trend line as well as the top of the Bollinger Bands. So I do expect that we might see a little bit of price cooling off here, and then maybe we take another run at it. Again, this is descending, so we are kind of coming very much to a point between this level of support and then this level of possible resistance. So another thing to keep a close eye on, obviously we have not seen much of this recently just because we haven't actually seen price really ever get back up that high. It's been a little bit more depressed price since then. So just something to think about there. If we do look at the RSI as well, this has been very, very largely oversold for months and months at this point. Basically, we've been pretty close to like only oversold or at least weak price again ever since like about the beginning of February. So when we started this downtrend, you can see RSI here just almost permanently depressed at this point. But we can see, some signs of life coming, which I do think is really good. I do think we may run into a little bit of trouble kind of right where we are now. We are starting to wick a little bit. So there is that possibility that stops a little bit. However, though, when we do seem to find a bottom, which it appears we may have potentially, it's usually pretty good for Jasmy. If we do look, obviously, we found some bottoms here. We kind of bounced around a little bit, found some support, and then we had a really, really nice parabolic run, came right back down, did the same type of thing, and then again, another parabolic run. So what I think we'd be expecting to see here is ideally kind of a move maybe back up to here. We get rejected, bounce in between this area, maybe even between this area more generally, and then we break above here, maybe start to kind of establish some support here, and then we could see another kind of parabolic run to the upside. Now, the important thing to consider here is, now let's zoom way out and kind of look at the big picture. So here we can see, if we look over the past year or so, basically starting at the beginning of 2024, we have gotten tops that are actually higher than the past. And so if we do look at that, I was kind of taking a kind of like a bottom to top measurement here. We could potentially, again, it depends on when we were to go and hit this next top, but we could potentially be anywhere from about 850% to like maybe 775% bottom to top. So that's like an 8 to 9x in what can be a very, very short period of time. This is about a month's time? Yeah, so it moved, a pretty insane amount in about a month's time. So we could totally see something similar happen here. This kind of time frame that I have here, I believe, is about 2 months. Yeah, this is 13th of April to the 29th of June. So about 2.5 months. 2.5 months if my quick math is doing me service. But anyway, what we can see though is essentially the TLDR here is price can move quick and it can move very, very violently with Jasmy. So as we start to see these little moves, we want to pay attention. Now, this is not me saying, go in and, mortgage your house and put it all in on Jasmy because we've seen a little bit of signs of life. That would be ridiculous. First off, I don't offer any financial advice just because that's not what I do. These are just my opinions. I have no idea for sure where anything is going to go. It's just not, I don't have my crystal ball. So that's not something that I'm able to help out with. But I'm just kind of looking at the chart here, seeing what we have seen in the past, and then trying to maybe make an educated guess on where we could potentially see it going. We are seeing some trends breaking. We are seeing some resistances getting broken, which of course is very, very good. And that to me is really important here, because what we are seeing is we're starting to see the tide shift a little bit. And again, we'll go back to Bitcoin as well, and we can see kind of something similar here. The tides are maybe potentially starting to shift. This is what I've been talking about for a very long time. We need to see the tide shift, because ultimately, until we start to see kind of a shift in sentiment in the market. Now, again, let's not get carried away. We have only seen a little bit of some, signs of potential reversal. We really haven't seen too much optimism coming out of any of the markets in the world recently. So I'm not saying that this is the start of, the crazy bull run or anything like that. What I am saying though is we just need to be open to all possibilities. We could continue to go further down. We've seen this happen before. It would not surprise me if we continued down further. However, what we are starting to see though is we're seeing signs of life. And that to me means we should just be paying attention. This is something overall that I try and stress, and I've stressed before in the past, where, a lot of the gains are coming when nobody's paying attention. Obviously, crypto, stocks, everything, basically all of the world markets are getting really beat on right now. And so a lot of the ways that people cope with that is they just go away, because they can't really take the mental turmoil or the mental anguish of seeing their money disappearing, right? And if you've been in Bitcoin, or not in Bitcoin specifically, but basically in any cryptos, you've probably seen that to one varying degree or another. And so when we start to see these, the tides shift and the trends may be reversed, this is the point where we want to really be paying close attention. So anyway, that's just kind of what I'm looking at here. I don't think we've seen anything definitively, but we are seeing the possibility that things might start to be getting at least a little bit better for Jasmy specifically. So anyway, hopefully you found the information in this video useful. If you did, a like and a subscribe really, really do help me out. Obviously, I'm still trying to grow my channel. If you haven't realized, this is not the best time to be making crypto content, because a lot of people are elsewhere, right? And so, a like and a subscribe interaction really, really does help me continue to grow my channel. I really do appreciate that if that is something that you do. Also, if you have any comments, questions, thoughts, concerns, anything like that, just drop those in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of those. So if you have anything that you want me to see, that'd be a great way to do so. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.